In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to a Kubernetes API resource called Network Policy. I'm going to give you the brief basics in this single slide, and then I'm going to do a demo where we are going to show that ingress to an Nginx pod, it could be any pod, is going to require a label. I do recommend that you check out the Kubernetes documentation. As usual, it's pretty amazing, and here's a couple of URLs. If you Google it, you'll probably find these anyway. Now, what does network policy do? It controls at the pod level traffic flow at the levels of IP address, layer 3, or port, layer 4. And respectively, they are in the OSI networking model, if I remember, network layer and transport layer. So you can actually make a comparison here as well with service mesh you may have heard of. That operates at layer 7, the application layer, and that's regarding service-to-service communications. So this is totally different, and you can't say that one is more important than the other. They're both important. Now, what does it allow you to do fundamentally? It allows you 3 different ways to control pod communications. One is comms to other pods, another is to namespaces, and another is to IP blocks as well. I should also have mentioned that in order to have network policy, by the way, you do need an appropriate networking plugin, these days more commonly referred to as a CNI plugin. So as long as you have that, you have access to this API network policy and these 3 ways. By default, by the way, ingress and egress is set at default allow, just so you know. And from there, of course, if you wanted to, you could do a default deny all ingress if you wanted to. And we're going to do a demo now, and I'm going to show you an Nginx pod that we'll create, and we're going to use a network policy to say to ingress on this pod, allow only other pods if they match this label, access true. And this is what the manifest looks like, the one that we're going to apply. So the API is coming from networking.kh.io. It's kind network policy, metadata name. Here's the important part in the spec. The Nginx pods we're going to refer to using this label, app Nginx. And on those pods, allow ingress only from other pods that match this label, access true. So remember I said here that there's 3 other ways: pods, namespaces, IP blocks. So for example, there's also something called a namespace selector, there's an IP block, etc., etc. But today we're going to focus on this first case, and we're just going to focus on simple labels on other pods incoming into labels target which match another label. So let's have a look. So here we are again, as usual, on my personal Linux server, on which I've got installed lightweight Kubernetes distribution called Kind. It's very common. There are other ones as well. I've got a couple of files in here. I've got the manifest that we just looked at, so we'll apply that shortly. First, let's set up this Nginx. I just want to show you what's in here. It's super simple. It's nothing special. We're not even using other manifests to create the deployment and the service. We're actually going to use kubectl commands, create a deployment, and expose that deployment, which is the same as creating a service on port 80. And then we're going to give it 5 minutes of sleep so we can make sure that everything looks ready. So let's do that now. Let's create a deployment, created the service. It's waiting 5 seconds just to make sure that everything should be in a running state, and that looks good. So the first thing we're going to do here is set up a test pod, and this is how we run it. So we go run test pod, that's just a name. Remove the pod when we're done, an interactive terminal or TTY session, and we're going to use the image Alpine curl, and we're going to launch a shell. So let's do that. And now what we're going to do is do a curl just the head, and we're going to do Nginx. And you can see here we got a return straight away, so everything looks good. Now, so you recall that I had already said that by default all ingress and egress is allowed. We just proven that, right? Ingress into that Nginx pod was permitted from test pod using curl. So now we're going to apply this policy which remember is only going to allow ingress if you're coming from a pod that has the appropriate label, which I think was access true. So there we go. I'll just prove it to you by doing kget netpol, and there you go, you can see it, and there's a selector. So this applies on any pods that have app equals nginx. So we're going to create a brand new test pod. Just like before, what we're going to do is try and curl to nginx, and I think we're going to expect it to fail, right, because we now have this new network policy. And you'll see that nothing is happening. We're definitely not getting that instant return that we had before. If I replay this, but instead I had a V for verbose, then you can see that obviously DNS is working right, but it's trying and it's not getting anywhere. And that's because it's been denied. Ingress only allowed if you're incoming with a label. So let's exit this. So now we're going to try one more time, and I've replayed the command, but I've added this part here. I've added this for our test pod. It's going to have a label of access equals true. So starting a shell, and I'll run that curl command again, and what do you know, straight away it was accepted, no problem at all. Which is just what we thought would happen, because here we have that label, pod selector match labels, access true. So that was a very quick demo of how network policy works. We just showed this case number 1, but obviously there's case number 2 and number 3. And it is just one of many tools that are very useful and definitely recommended to be using in your Kubernetes cluster, along with Service Mesh and others as well. I hope you found this very interesting. It's pretty simple, but it's effective. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more about Kubernetes, cloud, DevOps, Bash, everything, Linux, you name it. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.